G'day, if you are a CEO or business owner, then you want to make sure you're investing in projects that will succeed. There are three classic mistakes that I see people make all the time. Many of the business owners and founders just seem to have a real blind spot for this. In fact, it's so bad, 20 years ago, a major corporation made exactly these mistakes. I'm going to show you what mistakes they made and what you can do to avoid them. So stick around. So 20 years ago, there was a company called Agilent Technologies that created some technology. Now, what's that got to do with founders doing new ventures and projects? Well, I'm going to show you how even big companies can make classic mistakes. But there's three fundamental things that I think you need to learn about what this company did and how to avoid making the same mistakes. So the technology was called the bubble switch. Now back then there was a huge surge in demand for telecom products. So that means the backbone of the internet, connecting things together through this massive network. The biggest companies at that time were Cisco. Agilent Technologies was one of those supplying technology. Now this bubble switch had an enormous amount of promise because instead of optics going through electrical and electrons back to optics, it went directly optical to optical. Very fast, very efficient, and obviously a lot cheaper to run and to install. Now this technology was patented by Agilent and they've been working on it for quite many years. In fact, it was so fundamentally important that Agilent was investing an enormous amount of resources into this. It was their flagship product, the bubble switch. It was going to turn on billions of dollars worth of revenue. Now, I remember joining the company, and it wasn't long after I joined that my colleague announced at a meeting that it had been cancelled. Now we were all shocked because this was the flagship product. This was the thing that was supposed to save the company. Well, this colleague of mine put it very succinctly. He said, well, first of all, the demand has dropped. The telecom market has just plummeted. We don't have the demand, so all the forecasts for this product have dropped. Number two, we don't have any customers. Nobody's buying this product. And number three, it doesn't work. Pretty damning synopsis of a major project that the company had invested in for so long. So if a big company can make those kinds of mistakes, then certainly so can you and I in small businesses. We don't have the resources of a big company. But one thing we do have is kind of an advantage, is we don't have groupthink. In other words, what happens in a big company like that, everybody starts feeding off one another and it becomes a universal truth and they can all head down the wrong path. So I take my hat off to those guys for actually making a tough decision. And sometimes in business you have to make tough decisions. I've had to do it myself with my projects, and I've had to do it with my founders, other business partners. Sometimes projects just need to end. And at the end of the day, we're in business to make money. We want to turn our efforts into some revenue, some profit. We're in business. We're not doing it as a hobby, we're not doing it for fun, we're not doing it as a non-for-profit or as a volunteer or any other socially good things. We're here ultimately to drive revenues and make money. And we always should look at these decisions through that lens. And this isn't easy. Often we get very emotionally tied to the investment that we've made in something. It was a passion project, it's something we believed in, it was our vision. But at the end of the day, you've got to evaluate it critically because this is your business, this is your funds, this is your investment, and should it be deployed elsewhere? So let's go through those three really important decisions that you have to make, or three pieces of data that you have to look at in order to make those decisions. Number one, what is the demand for the project? So back to the bubble switch, demand dropped, so the forecast naturally dropped. What is the demand for the product that you need? Now you can go and do a lot of research to find out what the demand is. Try to look for real data, not just symbolic or mythical things. And of course, let's be careful with how we use the LLMs and what they're actually pulling. You need to get real data. One of the best sources of data is Google Analytics and Google Keywords. They tell you exactly what people are looking for. So get that demand figures and figure out whether there's demand for what it is you're offering. The second piece of advice I can give you is customers. Are there any real customers for your product or your service? Getting that first customer can be really challenging. You need to find ways to get to that customer. There's lots of ways we can do that. I can get into a few of them right now. But I would recommend getting a customer by hook or by crook even if it means beta testing and doing it for free, to really understand whether you actually have a product or not, whether customers are prepared to pay for it. Is the value proposition strong enough for you to actually command other people's hard-earned money? And the third one is, does it actually work? I think sometimes we just hang on too long to our vision, to our idea, when it just won't work. Now, I had a recent experience with a founder and a CEO, very experienced, many years in the industry. No matter what they did, they couldn't get the technology to actually work. And this became such a blow to them, because they had patents, they had years, they had experience, and they probably let it go on too long. However, they did finally realize that the technology did not work. Now, with the emergence of AI, this last one is really important. There's lots of hype, there's lots of tools, there's lots of people selling all sorts of things. You need to evaluate yourself. Is it giving you the value that you need? When you bring on an AI tool, for example, is it just fun? Is it something people want to do? Or is it actually affecting your business? So evaluate it through that lens. Is it doing what it's promising to deliver? Does it actually work? Hi, I'm Pete Cooper. I've been in tech for 30 years. My company Skillion has been in AI since 2016. If you want to know more about what we do, follow the links in the description. Hope that helps, and thanks for watching.